At Nokiga Talks, and we are in Tórshavn. I just landed back in the Faroe Islands after 4 months, and I'm here with Sissel Christensen, and she is the founder of and the owner of Sissel brand.
Yeah.
And she's also created a documentary about wool and the potential and history of wool in the Faroe Islands.
Mm-hmm.
So, Sissel, how did you get into knitting and wool?
Yes. In the Faroe Islands, it's like you learn to knit in school, but I learned to knit by my grandmother when I was 5 years old. We learned, and then we learned really how to knit when we go to school. So she taught me how to knit, but I didn't start knitting like sweaters and things like that until I was a little bit older then. I didn't start at 5 to knit sweaters, but I learned how to knit at five, and then started to knit later on.
We are both from the Faroe Islands, so we know that Faroe knitting is a big part of the culture. But how is it when you grow up among the girls? Is it that all the little girls in the Faroe Islands to learn to knit?
Well, I'm 49, so I don't know how it is with young girls today. But when I was young, when I was a little girl, we all knew how to knit. We didn't knit. We didn't have knitting clubs in my group. We were more football or soccer or whatever you call it, and things like that. But all girls learn how to knit in school, at least. In my age, well, girls who are my age. Now it's a little bit different. It seems it's mostly the grandmothers who teach the girls. I'm not sure if that's 100% true, but it seems like a lot of grandmothers teach their young girls, granddaughters, to knit. We don't have that. The culture has changed. Life has changed. Now it's probably more the granddaughters who teach their grandmothers how to do TikTok. The other way around. But they don't learn to knit in school the same way as we did. But I'm guessing that you will find a higher number of young girls knitting in the Faroe Islands than in many other countries. But I don't think we have 100% at the moment.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
So now
but I don't know.
TikTok and the small, how do you call it, distractions are taking over.
Yeah, but and I also think that many of the girls might learn how to knit on, for example, YouTube or Instagram or TikTok.
Yeah.
So they learn how to knit in different ways than we learned. Well, this is all me guessing. I don't exactly know, but that's my guess is, at least if you look at young girls today, many of them are knitting a lot, and they become quite good at it. But they knit, and this is worldwide, and they are mostly taught via social media, or started to get interest in knitting and patterns and what they can create themselves, so they can make things themselves. It seems they are taught, or the interest is awoken on social media, and they're taught via different tutorials. So yes, I think that's the big shift there, but I'm not sure if it's TikTok as such.
Yeah.
No, I don't know that.
I'm thinking knitting used to be like a social thing you do together.
Yeah, in the Faroe Islands, we used to say that all girls are in a knitting club.
Yeah.
At one point in their lifetime. Some of them are for like almost the whole life. For example, my grandmother, my Danish grandmother, she when she moved to the Faroe Islands just after the war, she became part of a knitting club, and she was part of that knitting club until she moved back to Denmark after my grandfather died. But my other grandmother, my father's mother, she was in that same knitting club, and she was and that they were active until she moved into an older people's home, and when I think she died in 2012, if I remember correctly, and that knitting club was still active, although I don't think they were knitting as much,
Yeah.
but they were still active, and they started just after the war. They started this knitting club, so that knitting club was active for 60 years, almost 60 years.
Is it still active?
Well, they're all dead now. So it was almost 60 years. They were active in the same group. Me and my friends, we don't have an active knitting club.
Yeah.
We it's on and off, and then we decide maybe we should start knitting again, and then it's more white wine than it's knitting. So
Yeah.
that's more our dynamic, friends dynamic.
And I thought with the old club you could actually bring younger members, so it would never die.
No, I think it's more. No, I don't think you have a chain that is held alive. I don't think
it's
so.
always the same.
Yeah, it is a group. It's a social thing. You discuss people. They start from discussing potential boyfriends to discuss diapers and children, and then preschool, and so it's the same group that follow. Some groups are neighborhood, like there's a neighborhood, so they might not be friends originally, but they all live in the same neighborhood, and this is a way to socialize and also discuss things in the neighborhood and learn from each other in ups and downs, and should we ask the municipality to get a new sign up for now children playing or something. I don't know, but it's different groups. Some knitting clubs are connected to a workplace, so yeah. But I'm a knitter, but I'm not an active knitting club person.
Yeah,
I don't do that.
Did you, when you were a kid learning to knit, did you have a special passion for it, or?
No, not necessarily. My family is quite creative, and it's like this is something they talk about, that some families are more creative than others, or we are all creative, but some do more creative things. And for me, it was more or less expected that since I was a girl in this family, I was more or less expected to do something creative or handy, if it was weaving or knitting or crocheting or something in terms of crafts. I was expected to do, not that my grandmother told me that you should do this and that, but it was like a subtle. This was just something people expected. I felt. I don't think I necessarily had a passion for because of them, but I had a knowledge and respect because of especially my father's mother and my two of his sisters, mainly those who got me into knowing a little bit more, and I felt so. And now that my interest for the Faroese wool and the sheep and knitting has rekindled in a way. One thing is fairly sad that my grandmother, that she's not here, because now I have so many questions that I would have loved to ask her that I didn't have the questions when she was alive. I have the questions now, and things that I would have loved her to have taught me, but I didn't have the interest when she tried to teach me.
Yeah.
So, but that's the story of life, I guess.
Yeah.
So, but yeah. So I didn't have that interest. My interest in knitting, I feel that I have always knitted, but I don't feel it's part of my identity when I was younger. I didn't feel it was part of my persona. I think it's quite recent that it's become part of my persona. I don't really know when the shift was, but in a way it feels like it was when I started high school, actually.
Yeah.
Or what we would say, after. No, I did also knit before that, but it feels it's later on in life that I started to become a knitter.
Yeah.
In that sense. So.
And with the Pharaohs, as you said, the old people, they had a lot of knowledge.
Yeah. Well, they were younger when they had the knowledge.
Yeah.
Now they're just older than I am.
Do you think a lot of it has died, or have they been good at preserving it?
No, I think a lot of it has died. Quite a lot. We were in Paris in February, and we were having this exhibition where we were presenting the film the documentary that we made, and it was the four of the companies part of the documentary. There's like 5 brands featured in the documentary, and 4 of them were in Paris to present the whole concept and also present their brands and their brand and products. And one of the Danish it was the Danish embassy, and the Danish, they really wanted to have a knitting club, but none of us really were part of a knitting club. So none of us really felt like that was the most natural thing for us to do.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't like, it's not what we do. So we didn't really feel how would it work. Would it be too stiff to sit there and pretend now we're sipping tea and knitting and having cake? It felt a little bit staged, which of course it would have been. So we decided to knit in a round. So we're sitting, the 2 of us who have the shop, Johanna, who has the brand Steinem, and I. So the 2 of us were knitting on, I think it's 11 needles. Yeah, I think it's 11 needles. Yeah, probably. And we knit so that we have, so I'm knitting on this side and she's sitting opposite me and knitting. And then we knit the same sweater or body in a round. This is an old way of knitting in the Faroe Islands before they started to have these connected needles that we have now. So this is a very old way to learn how to knit. They taught children to knit in this way, or they taught them probably to knit with 2 needles, but taught them to have the correct tension, to have the right speed, and because if I'm knitting, if we're 2 who knit the same sweater, and one of us has a odor. Well, if the tension is different, is fairly different, then you can see it on the finish item. So this was the way they made sure that the children learned to do the correct tension. Yeah. So actually, today you can find there's quite a bigger difference between the tension when people knit in the Faroe Islands or around the world. So you'll always look at, if you get a knitting pattern, you'll always look at the tension. If you some people might need needles 8 millimeters and others would need needles 6 millimeters to get the same result.
Yeah.
But as you couldn't do that back then. So actually they have been more professional in their knitting in a way. It has been easier to get the same result with the same knitting needles from different people back then than it is today. So we had to learn to do this knitting in a round, yeah. Johanna and I, and it was quite fun. It's quite difficult as well, but we didn't know this. But luckily, Johanna's mother taught us to do it. She's not that old that she's going to pass off soon, but she's still in the older generation, yeah. And I'm afraid that if we don't ask these people now, then these techniques and these knowledge will just disappear. And now we do it only as a showpiece.
Yeah.
This is not something I wouldn't do. I wouldn't knit a sweater in around together with someone today. But I think it's quite. I think we should make sure that people know these where we came from. I think it's always good to know where you came from, even though you don't have to live in where you came from.
Yeah, you know the roots of the design and the roots of the knitting.
Yes. So that's one of the. Another one is coloring with natural. My grandmother, she colored a lot with moss and heather and other things that I don't remember now. And I would have loved to know how she did that. I would have loved to know how to actually find. If you go down to the third drawer there. This is a piece of Faroese fur. So you have. I would have loved to know how to make this into this, for example.
Yeah.
Because I can do this from this one to this one.
Yeah.
But I cannot do from this one to this one.
And that is all done today with machine.
It is mostly done with machine. A lot of people do know how to do this, so I should probably just set time off to learn this.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if I have the patience to do that. I asked someone. I tried to learn from someone who knows how to do this. How long it would take? How much? I would need 4 kilos of this kind of wool.
Yeah.
If I wanted to get a sweater made with the finest, the inner wool is quite soft, and whereas this you can see that this is coarse. Yeah. Whereas this one is quite soft, and it's almost like cashmere. It's really, really, really soft. So if I was to make me a sweater only with the soft wool, then it would need 4 kilos of wool.
Yeah.
And I would spend 2 weeks full time, like a 2 weeks working week, just to get enough to make me a sweater. With just to get me enough yarn to make me a sweater. Yeah. And then I will have to knit it.
So the ladies at home in the Faroe Islands, they used to sit and spend a month.
Yeah, they have. Well, they were better at it. There were more people. The children would divide. I don't know the English words for this, but they would divide this inner wool, separate the inner wool from the outer wool. That the children would have done, and they would have, and then they would all be helped. Everybody will be taking part in spinning and carding, I guess it's called, washing, carding, and spinning the wool. Everybody would take part of that, and then actually everybody would knit as well, men, women, and children. So it's there's much more work in a hand knitted sweater than people tend to think.
How long does it take to make?
I usually say that my sweaters that I sell in the shop, I usually say that it will take us about 40 hours to make a sweater.
Okay.
But mine are not, because I sell them and because people don't want to pay the price for a very fine knitted, with thin needles, light sweater. They won't pay the price that it is. Well, they don't pay the price. Nobody will pay the price for the price of a sweater.
Yeah.
I was in Japan at one point where I was in a shop. There was just a normal sweater hanging there. It was very finely knitted. It was very beautifully. The sweater was, in a way, well, this is a cardigan, but it was knitted like this, like fine needles and small patterns like this, where this is machine made, because you could never take the money and you'll never get people paying what this is worth. If this was handled,
you just have to find the right market.
Yeah, well, yeah, but and I can't recall right now if it was 17,000 Danish kroners or it was 21,000 Danish kroners.
Yeah,
No, true. No, it was 23,000 Danish kroners that the sweater cost,
yeah,
and you would never have anyone pay that here.
Yeah, there-
Not in a million years. I don't know if it was sold.
yeah,
The story doesn't say if they bought it, but still, this is what it takes.
yeah,
So the reason why I make sweaters more like this is just a top, but sweaters that are heavily knitted like this
Yeah.
is because it takes less time, and you can get a few sweaters through instead of just selling a few a month.
yeah,
So 40 hours is what I usually say. It's up and down. Some are this one doesn't take 40 hours, but this is again only a top. But others would take maybe 50 hours depending on what it is. So, but yeah, average.
What does a 40-hour sweater go for?
I sell it in my shop at the moment. I sell them for 1,800 Danish kroners. But it's too low. So I actually have to. Well, it is too low.
Yeah, sounds really cheap.
But it is. I will have to make them. Well, I have to higher the price because everything is more expensive now. So there has to be something left.
Yeah,
This is not just for fun. We do this.
yeah.
So yeah.
How long does it take to learn?
Well, as I said, I'm 49, and I was 5 years when I learned. So I've been knitting for 44 years.
Yeah.
It takes you quite some years to learn to knit so that it's even and it's sellable.
Yeah,
So I will say, if somebody came to my shop and asked to be a knitter,
yeah,
be knitting for me, I would definitely make sure that I know that this person has been knitting for. Well, I would have preferred if they had knitted for at least 20 years.
yeah,
But you will also find people who are so good knitters that they can sell their stuff after 5 years. But I would not have a new beginner because it has to be even. It has to be. There are people who, because even though 1,800 kroner is not much for a sweater, it's still a lot of money
yeah,
for the person. So you always have to respect the money. You always have to respect that for the customer, this is a lot of money.
Yeah.
Even though it's cheap.
Yeah.
Cheap in terms of how much it costs to make and the yarn and everything. So the person has to feel confident that this is not a baby who has made this product.
Yeah.
That this is a skilled knitter.
Yeah.
Because they just make this. So, but it is different from person to person. But I don't think that my knitting was worth selling until I had been knitting for at least 10 years.
Yeah.
But I didn't try.
So
I did try. Yeah.
It's not something you can just
it's not something
make a course on or give a workshop and in 2 months you know.
Yeah, for your knitting for yourself easily.
Yeah.
Knitting for some of your loved ones easily.
Yeah.
But knitting for a shop to sell, you have to be more trained.
Okay.
So you can easily learn to knit, and if you are, you don't have to be a perfectionist, but if you are someone who knows to make sure that this, like, you double check things, you don't just rush through it, then you can easily knit a beautiful sweater for yourself with only like a second run.
Yeah.
But there's a very big difference between making for yourself and your loved ones and for a shop.
You see the difference if it's done pro or if it's done by someone who just did anything.
Yeah, you can see sometimes when somebody I can see when it's if somebody's not a good knitter. But you can also have been knitting for all your life and you still have I'm lacking in the word sjuskot. just not done
Yeah.
well enough.
Not thorough.
Yeah, you can still see after many years, but it depends on if you like it. If you knit because, yeah, well, it's depending on person to person, and the good thing it's allowed.
Yeah.
You are allowed to make a sweater that doesn't look like made by a professional, and knitted just by yourself. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
As long as you care. The most important thing with knitwear, I think, is that when you knit, you make things that you care for.
Yeah.
When you make it yourself, usually you will care for it more than if you just bought it from a well, I'm not going to name brands, but like this fast fashion style.
Yeah.
If it's just something that, like, when you wash it once, it changed colors or something like that, or if it's just sewn with an overlocker and it tears up easily, that's not something you care for the same way as you would care for something that maybe your grandmother made, or you yourself made,
Yeah.
or you bought from a shop like ours that costed a little bit more, and maybe this is part of this and this is part of that culture, or is part of that place's history or something.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be the Faroe Islands. Just the fact that somebody has, it could be any country, just handicraft made with love.
Yeah, exactly. The sentimental value, like if you lose something you bought, even though it was an expensive sweater, compared to if you bought something that your grandma made with her
That
heart,
will be
and
very
you lose
different.
it. No,
Yeah,
it's
that
a
will be
totally
very, very,
different
very,
feeling.
very different. Yes.
Because
Yeah.
you know she sit there and was thinking about you
And
while she was making.
and sometimes people forget that, and I think, well, at least I sometimes find that people forget that when they get something from their friend or family member or someone who made something especially for you, and just imagine they've been sitting knitting for 40 hours
Yeah.
to make, well, and this is, if you give as a present, it's probably one that took more than 40 hours, because we are quite good knitters. We knit fast.
Yeah.
If somebody sit there for 60 hours making something for you, instead of just going to a shop and buying something and spending like 20 minutes on that,
Yeah.
there is some degree of affection. I will
Yeah.
find it. You should always be happy with, glad when you get presents. Well, you should always recognize what people are doing. But if they've been sitting for 40, 50, 60 hours knitting,
Yeah.
then you shouldn't just say, oh, well, I don't like it, it's not my style, or something. And then you should at least make sure that somebody else who will love it will
Yeah.
gets it afterwards.
Time invested.
Yes,
with a
it's
lot
very
of love.
much time. And time is the bigger, is more expensive, most expensive thing we have.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And so wool, has there happened a lot the last 5-10 years in the Faroe Islands with the fashion and the wool? And
I think you have to go further back. You have to. There was when I went to high school and we knitted. It wasn't wool. It was mostly cotton. We knitted.
yeah.
Or it was softer Norwegian wool. That was what we knitted in my circle of friends and class. Then came Gurun and Gurun, Siri, Snaldan started to do. There was 3, and there was somebody else as well. Pau was one as well. They were all more or less in the same time period when they tried to reinvent knitting. Gurun went with very beautifully patterned sweaters that were based on Faroese knitting traditions. They did also some furs with Faroese sheep skin, and they were doing that direction. And then there were, for example, seria, which was also quite a big company. They did more. They were not so much hand knitting, or they did hand knitting, but they didn't. That was not their breakthrough, as I recall. It was more machine knitted, but they used the Faroese wool, and they designed a sweater or sweaters and jackets that were different from what we are used to see. And then there were other companies, and then so we had, before that we had Snaldan and Tøting and somebody else who had patterned sweaters, but they were very traditional, and they were more or less the same as we had for many years. And then these new brands came with a new hope and belief and vision for knitting and the wool, and of those, Gurun has become the flagship. They have made knitting popular again, and they have made knitting, or they have made knitwear popular again, and they've made it okay to go in and buy knitwear for more than, because I hear people coming into the shop here, and then they take a sweater and then they look at the price, and then they say, this price, the yarn only costs, and then they say like a quarter of that, and then they think that we should have a store, pay like heating and staff, and have been making it and not getting a revenue of it. So we still have that, but people were starting to pay for a product that was designed by someone who had a vision, who had a really strong design eye, a really good designer, and that changed. And this is about the start of this millennium. This 2000. It was beginning of this, and then COVID came and made everybody, well, not everybody, but a lot of people start to knit around the world.
Yeah.
So that also made knitting, people got their eyes open for knitting worldwide, much more than it has been. And a lot of people come in here looking for, I see a difference from before COVID and after. How people come in, and the way there are more knitters in the shop now. There are more people who come in and say, yeah, I actually like to knit. I just recently learned how to knit. So we have that. And then we actually, it is not just, there was a customer who came from the UK talking about the killing, which made, it was the killing that made the Gurun's Sarah Lund sweater so popular.
Yeah.
Or it was the breakthrough for that worldwide.
Killing, it's it's a series which became very popular, a Danish series. I haven't seen it myself, but there was
it was very popular, and it had different seasons, and she had 3 different Gurun sweaters on through that these 3 different series, and now the killing started viewing in the UK, and now the Faroese drum has been viewing in the UK, and also there you have knitwear in it, but it's not just these two. These two, there are other things that people have noticed, the Nordic style.
Yeah,
the Nordics in general, Nordic countries in general are becoming more and more interesting and popular, and with that, the Nordic sense of style or design voice has become more popular, and in that, knitting is part of it. The Icelandic have been knitting super popular sweaters for, I wouldn't say a million of years, but of course not that, but for many years. and so has the Norwegian, so there are like, you have the Faroese knitting voice, you have the Icelandic, you have the Shetland and Orkney. They're super well. I don't know. I know that they're not part of the Nordics, but they're still in this. These countries that have the ocean connecting them. So
Yeah.
we are connected to the Shetland Island and Orkney in a way, even though they're part of the UK. But we are connected via we are ocean people.
Yeah.
So wool will always be a good companion because it's very good in terms of the weather.
Yeah.
Because it's so perfect for the outdoors.
Yeah.
So, and if you go, and one of the reasons why we have also exported so much knitwear is because people who have been on fishing, they have worn our sweaters and Norwegian and Swedish sweaters as well, and Orkney sweaters. So it's all these things connected has made knitting more popular. So it's many different things, but the Nordic is one of them, and in the Faroe Islands, I don't think that COVID as such did anything good for our knitting culture, because we did knit in the first place. But of course, the more other countries start to knit and start to post on Instagram and other social medias, their knitting, then more and more people will start to do that. But I think there are a lot of people in the Faroe Islands who like to knit and who knit for grandchildren or their friends' children or something. But they still buy knitwear also. And then there are those who copy. So that's like the three things there.
I'm thinking with COVID, and now you said it has gotten more popular. But so there are a lot of amateur knitters around now learning, trying their ways.
Yeah.
Where are they learning? Is it from TikTok? Is it from YouTube? Are there
I guess. Well, I don't really know. I guess it's not TikTok because they seem older.
Yeah.
Maybe because I don't have TikTok, so I imagine nobody my age. I do know they do.
Yeah.
But this that's my simple mind. But I think there's a lot of tutorials, and there's a lot of, especially because people were sitting at home.
Yeah.
So even though they're still amateurs, because they only is like COVID is, well, it's just 2.5 years.
Yeah.
But if you're sitting at home and you're feeling fairly depressed,
Yeah.
and you only have like Netflix or television or podcasts and radio to entertain you more or less, and then knitting is a good thing, and then you can actually knit a lot. You can actually, in 2 years, if you sit at home knit, you can actually knit 6-7 years worth of experience.
Yeah.
Because if you have a full-time job,
Yeah.
and you spend a lot of transporting you back and forth and to the supermarket and go shopping and all these things that your normal daily life will consume of your hours, then you don't have that many hours to knit. So you might maybe knit 2 hours a day in the evening, for example. That would be like a normal thing for me. It would be 2 hours. If I don't have a lot of knitting to do, then I would knit 2 hours a day.
Yeah.
But if I were to sit at home and not get out, even though I do have, if I had normal work, and my work is knitting, so, but even though I had normal work, then I would still have 6 hours to knit, maybe, or maybe even 8.
Yeah.
And if you're excited about this, and this is something that makes you up, this is your positive thing, then you will knit as much as you can. And then there was a lot of online knitting communities. So it was very, very popular. And the more people, and then there's always somebody who sees a possibility, and then they start to sell patterns, and tutorials, and they have these different knitting online courses. So it becomes something that it exploded.
Yeah.
But also some of these people, they still buy knitwear, even though they knit themselves. They still buy because now they see, oh, that one is interesting, that sweater. They didn't see it before because they didn't have interest in that before, maybe.
Yeah.
So it's that is like a spiral, and that it's not my theory, but this is like we hear a lot about this. So it's different. Well, different jigsaw puzzles.
Are there any Faroese online courses, or is there
I don't think
anything-
so. I don't think
There
so.
should be.
I think the Faroese are fairly snobbish in a way for that. Or it's like, I'm not going to learn from her. They would rather learn from somebody abroad than from another Faroese. This is a little bit.
No, I'm thinking about people,
if
people
we
abroad, because the Faroes, with like the story, like the documentary, it would sell so well that like here we have such a strong knitting tradition, and I think people would be really interested in learning.
It could be, but you still will have to go out of your comfort zone and speak a different language.
Yeah.
And you will. There's a lot of words that we probably don't do that well in English.
Yeah.
Because we have them. We have first. Most of us translate from Faroese to Danish to English.
Yeah.
So things can get lost in translation there.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know. There's probably a potential.
It should not. It don't have to be live. They can just be planned. So if you don't find the words, you can look them up before.
Yeah.
So you make like 15 minutes videos where you explain this. And then you have this different teachers who have different styles. I think it would be really popular.
For example, you mentioned the documentary. I did that in English. It was quite difficult to get people to be themselves.
Yeah.
Because we had to speak English. And it's when you have at that point we had a cameraman and 2 directors and me, and so it was a lot of people in the room. But many of us became a little bit intimidated by that. But again, we haven't promoted it as such, not heavily. We just bits and pieces here and there. But still, it's only 10,000 people who have seen it so far.
Yeah.
So even though it's about knitting and about Faroese wool and history, which could be quite interesting if you are interested in knitting, but there are a few knitting forums on Facebook. I think it's mainly on Facebook, who have shared it into their group. But it's not something that people will really spend their time on. It seems, but I would love that we would maybe not teach, but involve people more in taking a stand in what kind of wool and yarn we use, and why we use this yarn for this and that yarn for that, and why that is good, and then people can choose their style within that.
Yeah.
So they or just make them more equipped to take good choices regarding knitwear, because it's too easy just to read a pattern or hear someone say something and just do that.
Yeah.
You have to. I'm finding it a bit depressing, but of course, if you are a new knitter, you will go for what you find security in.
Yeah.
And you will go for a pattern that all the others knit, or all the people that you admire or you think are good knitters. You try to do the same patterns as they do, but it's not this world, knitting world, with patterns and yarn. It is very much a monopolized um, market in the sense that it's not that nobody has a monopoly of the market, but you get in your head, you get one or two brands, and that's the only thing you can capture in a way. So quite a lot of people do only use that pattern provider or that pattern provider. And then you have these people who have been knitting all their life. They know, they shop around, they do, but very many people do just go. It's very narrow in a way, but I'm guessing that will change when they have become better or more relaxed in this universe. Anyway,
I'm thinking like you could go online and you buy like a course to make this kind of sweater, and then you get it sent. You get exact as a package. You get a course combined with a package, and then you see like it's basic and advanced, and then you can like you see what level it is.
There's actually one, but he's not Faroese. There's this guy who actually has a great he does that, and he's super cool. And then he's from his storage place, he ships off yarn and patterns, and then at 3:00 Saturday or something, everybody's ready, and then he sends off the pattern, and then everybody's knitting together. But this could be very interesting, but it's it could be very interesting. But it's still for example, I tried just now to make my first pattern to sell. Even though I sell the sweater in the shop, I also sell the pattern, and it is actually my bestseller, and I've only made it in Danish so far. And it took me just to make the pattern, to make it so that you can follow it. And I just introduced it on Saturday, so there's not many who have knitted it following my pattern. So I don't know if it's good enough. I have a feeling that it's 95% good. There's probably something that needs to work back and forth, but it took me. I do have this brand and the shop as well, but I spent like 2 to 3 months just making sure that everything, taking the photos, having a test knitter to test knit it before I made the pattern, and just working it through, finding all these different. Is this clear enough? Is this logical for someone? Because it's easy for me because I made the sweater. I made so many of them. I don't see necessarily the faults that I have. It's like spelling.
I know what you mean.
So this is even though I love the idea of doing that, this is something that you will have to invest a lot in to make it, or at least you have to make sure to do it well.
For you, it's subconscious. You are subconscious competent. It's like if you've been biking your entire life, it's hard to learn someone how to bike instead of someone who's just learned how to bike. He knows the issues, because you can never imagine the issues if you learn to bike as 4 years old.
Yes, exactly.
So if you learn to knit as 4 years old, you don't know the hard spots.
But it's one thing is to knit, but there's knitting is just not just knitting. Knitting is knitting that way and that way. And for example, I knit in Danish. Other people knit. It's I don't know. It's continental knitting, and then I'm not sure the other one. The Faroes knit like the British, I think. I knit as the Danish, and I think I knit as the Russian as well. I think the Russians knit the same way, and the Americans, I think, knit. There's this different. This is just knitting, and then you have purling is the same. But then you have all these different. You have Italian close off. You have this and this. So knitting is not just one back and forth. It's different techniques with holes and yeah, and you can hear that I don't know all these words in English, but so you have, when you make a pattern, you have to make sure that it's clear that this is, oh, she meant, oh, slips, oh, you slip the stitch, oh, the yarn in front, not the yarn in back, or how do I go into the loop? Is it this way or that way? All these things, they have to be very it have to be explained so that the viewer or the reader will feel confident in it. So that's the thing. One thing is to knit, but for me, as you said, the subconscious, that's the pattern. For me, the pattern, I've done the sweater so many times, so I know the pattern.
Yeah.
So I don't see when I say something wrong, because in my mind, I read something and I know what I mean, but I don't necessarily say that in the pattern when I write it. So all these things you have to go through. It is super interesting, and it's been really fantastic working with this. But I just found out it's not just something you do like that. It is much more. And I have to sell, I think, I have to sell at least 100 patterns before I start to get something in.
And the thing is, like when you sell online, it's not the shop, you can, if you hit something, the right pattern, and you set up the right marketing, all of a sudden you can sell like 10,000.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
So it's just about marketing the right way. And
I
think for the Faroe Islands, it's so unique here. We can run on like it's the sheep islands and the wool. Use your documentary, and I think you could sell it really.
Yeah. Well, it is possible. It is possible. Yeah, if you dive into it, when you have to mean it 100%.
Yeah,
you cannot do this thing half.
Yeah.
So that's, but yeah, it is interesting.
So through your documentary, really well done.
Thank you.
Really professional and very interesting.
Yeah.
And so from there, I saw that there were like, what was it called? There were a lot of the wool used to be thrown away.
Yeah, it still is.
Still is.
Yeah.
How do you fix that?
I think, at the moment, there's about 70,000 ton of wool collected or shorn every year. Last year, 26 ton were delivered at the agricultural agency. So that's just, less than a third. Above a third. Sorry. This year, and then we did the documentary, and there's a lot of people involved in this, and I'm very grateful for all them. It was because, as you say, they were the crew. They were super professional, and that's what made it good. But 26 ton last year. This year, 33 ton. So, and that's quite a bigger difference from 26 to 33. And actually this year it was more difficult to get wool in because they were shearing the sheep so late. Yeah. Because due to the weather, then many of the sheep have actually thrown off their wool, their fleece. Yeah. And that's what sheep do here in the Faroe Islands, or our type of sheep do. So they actually didn't get as much. So the amount of wool caught was lower, or this is what I'm told. But the amount of wool getting into the wool terminal was higher, much higher. So actually, 2021, 70,000 became 26. This year, 70 became 26. This year, 70 became 33. That's almost half of it. And that is quite big a step. Yeah. I'm told that this was also due to people shaming the farmers who didn't deliver the wool at the agriculture agency after having not necessarily seeing our documentary, but also by our documentary and the public talk about this natural resource.
Yeah.
It's a shame it's being wasted and burned. So the thing that we did our documentary, and somebody else does this and somebody else does that, and the talk in town or the talk on the island becomes, we should not burn our wool. It's a shame and this and that. That helped in this. So I'm super proud of that, and I'm like amazingly proud of that. Even if I only was half a ton, then it's good.
Yeah.
If I could just take credit for half a ton, I'm happy. So we have to do these different things, but we also have to remember that it's not just the farmer's fault; it is the consumer's fault.
Yeah.
Because not only do we consumers not buy the fairest wool, because why would people spend money and energy, like really energy, oil and things to make yarn if people don't knit with it? That's one. So we have to be open to using the wool the correct way. Again, now I'm back to the beginning, that the Ferris wool is perfect for outerwear. It's not perfect to against the skin, unless you do the thing that I mentioned in the beginning, with the soft wool. The inner wool is perfect for the body or for the skin, whereas the outer wool, the mixed wool that we get, is perfect for outerwear. At the moment, we only have mixed wool.
Yeah.
And we only have mixed wool because the market there's not enough money in it to work with getting separating it.
Yeah.
Because it's very costly. Consumers don't want to pay so much for the wool. So they either, if it's too expensive, then they say, if it was the correct price, then many of them will say, no, it's too expensive, I don't want to buy it. Then they go and buy acrylic.
Yeah.
And that's like oil. So,
Yeah.
and then that's a huge problem. And also, the less money the farmers get for the wool, and this is the Faroese government who has to give more money to the agricultural agency. And I really do think that they should set off more money to the agricultural agency to pay the farmers. Because at the moment, if the farmer who lives 2 kilometers away from the agricultural agency, and the farmer who lives 3 ferries or 2 ferries and 1 hour driving away gets the same price. Of course, the farmer who lives further away should be compensated for that. Of course, it should be, because why would you, if you live in a small island, and it will take you at least 1 whole day just to get the wool to the agricultural agency, and you get less to nothing for the wool. Why should they do that? But there's still. Then I was at a sheep shearing in July, and I was talking to this elderly man who had, I think he had 6 mother sheep, and he said that he delivered the wool to the agriculture agency because it was good money for him. So he was close enough for this to be economically good for him. But if you don't live in a driving distance, then it's not economic. Then you have to be a romantic to do this.
Yeah.
And we have to remember that it's also costly in terms of oil, and in terms of driving, or if, for example, on the big Dymon Island, you have to take a helicopter.
Yeah.
And then it's actually more environmentally sane to burn the wool.
Yeah.
And we also have to be more intelligent in our discussion, and not just shame the farmers for not delivering the wool.
Yeah, exactly.
And there are farmers who don't care,
Yeah,
who burn it. Let's talk. Let's see if we can have a conversation with them and see how we can help so that we can get their wool.
yeah,
There are some other fields that are so far away from the main road that it's only lunatic who will drag that amount of wool across the mountain to the car to drive it. Don't shame him. Shame the ones who, well, you should never shame somebody, but be talking.
Shame the one who lives right next to it.
Yeah, who does do that? Talk with him in big letters.
Yeah,
and all the others who don't want to, who might be able, talk to them, help them, and not help them like in a like, oh, poor little boy, but like make it say, well, I can take it off your hands.
yeah,
Can I take it off your hands and then I can sell it? Let's do something like that, and then the more wool we have, because we will never have more than 70 tons.
yeah,
Because we will never have more than 70,000 sheep.
yeah,
But we could, if we were more aware of the end product, then the farmers could work with how they would choose which ram to be the main male ram that makes all the eaves pregnant. Then how will we choose him that has the wool that's also best for getting a better yarn?
yeah.
So it's a huge thing. I only know about knitting, but I have a great interest in the other things. But I know so little because I don't have that knowledge. I haven't learned that, but I'm learning more and more and more, and there's so many different people, both here in the Faroe Islands and other places, that have an interest in it. Let's take King Charles.
Yeah,
He is a big environmentalist.
yeah,
He's actually done. I'm quite pleased with King Charles at the moment. Whereas everywhere in the world, the amount of wool, the usage of wool has gone down. In the UK, it has gone up.
yeah,
Because King Charles, then Prince Charles, he had campaigns. He has done huge campaigns to talk wool up.
yeah,
So he's been a great advocate for wool. So people finding stuff like that, it doesn't have to be a documentary like mine. It doesn't have to be sweaters like mine. But just the fact that we are more people who have different alternatives, because not everybody likes my style.
yeah,
As in, not everybody likes somebody else's style. But just having different things so that we can find these natural resources, because wool is, for us, is a byproduct.
yeah.
So we will still, the sheep, as long as we eat meat, lamb here in Faroe Islands, which I don't see that we will never ever stop with, as long as we will have sheep and it will be such a male, masculine culture that we have in that sense, the sheep will have wool.
Yeah.
Every year the sheep will shed their wool and we will have wool. We could either just burn it or we can do something with it. If we use the wool that the sheep have, because the sheep, in terms of environmentalism, the sheep methane, because of the sheep is that kind of animal that gives out methane, and that's a negative thing for the environment.
Yeah,
But at the same time, the wool collects carbon. So actually, whereas the sheep, when it farts, it's negative, but the wool itself, it is collected here, and as long as it is still an active product, it is collected here.
Yeah.
Because this is undyed, there's no coloring in this. There's no toxics in this.
Yeah.
So if when I'm finished wearing this, I could actually just leave it outside in nature, and all the nutrients from this will go back into the soil,
Yeah.
and the sheep will eat that. So yes, the sheep is it's not as bad as the cows, far from it, but it is still in that category,
Yeah.
in that family of animals. But it is also because it holds the carbon sulfate. It holds it, it binds it, or fastens. I don't know the word. So it's still also a good thing, and it is a byproduct. So rather do that than tear down all these cotton plantations. Cotton is a wonderful product. I love cotton, but at the moment we are using it, we are breaking it down.
Yeah.
And we should rather give the soil time to recover.
Yeah.
So that we can get good cotton, because the worse the soil is, the worse the cotton is. So it's like if you have a bad platform, well, you're not going to stand straight. It will be wobbly. So rather try and see if we can come back to having all the good natural, because the world was a much more natural place.
Yeah.
Before we started to over consume.
Yeah.
So rather have fewer things. Again, this I know is utopic, what I'm saying right now.
Yeah.
But let's rather have fewer things, and then care for them and make sure. Then we can even go back to spending 2 full weeks in just getting the right wool. I mean, wouldn't that be the most amazing sweater, Joel?
Yeah.
And you will never lose that one.
Yeah.
You will care for it as nothing else.
There could be some like exclusive products. As the thing is, people pay silly amounts to write market for exclusive things. So it's about like just knowing how to market that market and positioning it as exclusive, like handmade, and how much went into making it. Because people, as they pay for exclusivity, they don't pay for usage when it comes to the.
I was in Greenland, and I was visiting they make Greenlandic clothes with the beadings. It's called Kita, and it's in a nook down by the harbor. It's a fantastic workshop. And there was this lady. She was making a like this Greenlandic top. I'm not sure what it's called, but the beaded top that they have, the females. And she'd been working for it for 4 months.
Yeah.
And she had more months to go. I don't know how long, but she was sitting and making for a customer in the States. And it was beautiful. It was so beautiful. And this was a special special requested thing that she made. And she was paid like hourly wages. So it has costed a fortune.
Yeah.
But there's a customer who wants to pay for that, and that's always good. But you can never make a brand by one lady who spends almost a half a year to make one thing.
Yeah.
She will never be a sought after brand.
Yeah.
Unless you are exceptionally good at branding.
Yeah.
If you can sell 2 pieces a year and be like the brand, that is going to be very difficult. If you have to have a brand to be able to tell the story correctly, then you will have to have more than one. Then you will have to have many people doing this.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if that if basing a brand, it's easy to find one customer who wants to pay for that. Or maybe not easy, but it's possible to find 1 or 2 customers who are willing to have me knit fine needles, making something really, really old Faroese, a trend, but reinvented into contemporary style out of this. I will find customers for that. But I don't know if I could get a mortgage if I say this is my customer base.
Yeah.
Because my bank will need to know that is there a possibility that she will sell this
Yeah.
the next 10 years to come. And I guess that it will be more difficult to sell that story to my bank manager
Yeah.
than it is to sell 1 and 2 and 3 or 4 sweaters. Because I've had people pay me when I was a student, pay me a lot of money to hand knit a sweater.
Yeah.
But it was more a coincidence than it was based on. It was not based on very good branding.
Yeah.
It was just more coincidence that somebody really, and women who really wanted, and that was before everybody knitted.
Yeah.
So then back then knitting was more unusual in Denmark than it is here. So yeah.
It's been lovely talking to you.
Thank you. You
Very
too.
interesting. I learned a lot.
Yeah. I hope you do too.
Yeah. And we are out. Good.